Folks, I have to tell you, President Trump never ceases to amaze me. 10 days ago, I told you that Trump was changing the midterm battlefield, and I gave you an update on what he was doing as far as the Election Assistance Commission, the DOJ, the letters to all 50 states, to D.C., talked about the SAVE Act and what the president was doing to apply pressure on members of the Senate. Well, today, I want to give you an update because the Democrats are getting ready to roll out their fundraising results from this past quarter. And while they'll like America to believe that they're actually accomplishing something, I'm here to tell you that the president has continued to be 2 to 3 steps ahead of these people. And they're going to be fighting these midterms on their heels. More specifically, I want to talk about the moves that I think that President Trump is still up to, the ones that I'm watching. There's a deadline still in place. And the first one of these comes up this week on the 24th. But what's most important about all of this is that Donald Trump has single-handedly been carrying this party to what could be a historic midterm win. And I'm not a hype beast saying that. Okay, if I see something going on, I'll call it out because I'd rather point out the accident before we get there and face the inevitable. You see, while the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have been counting their cash, Trump has been doing something that neither of them can write a check to stop. Now, I want to start out with the DOJ and the DHS. Both of them started executing a 4-part enforcement offensive on citizenship ID and verification. And it's escalating, okay? And it starts out with paperwork, then it moves to the states, then to people on the ground. And it's something that doesn't go away. I want to walk you through all of it because each one is bigger than the last. But the piece that matters most throughout all of this still remains the calendar, because that deadline I mentioned, the 24th, that's the date that the states have to reply to the DOJ in response to the letters they got. Now, through it all, here's what actually has changed, okay? And it's not the headline that you think. Okay, we've all followed the SAVE Act. We know the Save America Act is still in turmoil. Okay, we followed it for over a year. We know it needed 60 votes in the Senate. It needed Republicans to back it, people that weren't going to sit around, people that wanted to actually do something about election integrity, the will of the American people. That, unfortunately, is not what we got. And as of this week, it's not really a bill anymore. You see, President Trump has been working the periphery, and he's deployed it now in a form of executive enforcement. And it's running on federal agencies in a calendar that Congress doesn't get to control. So hope is not lost, okay? And this is a distinction that matters. When something's in a bill, members of Congress can get rid of it. Hell, it only takes 4 Republicans to walk over to the well of the Senate and kill a bill. In fact, that's happened multiple times on this. But in this example, as an executive enforcement action, one that runs through the DOJ and DHS, no one cares about the filibuster. There's no 60-vote threshold. You can't stall an agency letter, not the way you can these prima donnas do when they stall the votes on the floor. And this is the whole ball game. This is the sideline plan that the president has been running in parallel. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, okay? I want to back up because I think you need to know why this had to happen, because some of you may have not been watching this channel. And all we have to do is reflect on the polling that's been done, the questions that have been posed to the American people on whether they support requiring proof of citizenship or an ID for voter registration or to vote. Now, we had one of the largest pollsters in the country, Gallup, found that 83% of Americans said yes. 96% of those were Republican. 70-some% were Democrats. 2 out of 3 Democrats, in fact, said yes. But the Senate, they want to make it sound like it's just an issue of state sovereignty and federal government has no business, or it's too much of a monstrosity. But what they're missing out is that this is a mandate. But despite it all, SAVE Act has continued to fail. And it wasn't for Democrats blocking it. Again, we had bipartisan alignment. at least amongst we the people. It failed because of the 4 Republicans who decided to join the Democrats to stop it. And one of them, Tom Tillis, who I talked about in an earlier video, he's a lame duck senator who doesn't have to answer to a single voter again in his life. He's rolling out as the patsy for Senate Leader John Thune because John Thune is too chicken to disagree with the president in public. And Tillis is going out of his way to stifle this legislation that we have demanded. And again, his reasoning is not that this is a bad idea. He's saying there's not enough time to implement it. I mean, he's proud of the fact that they've rolled out voter ID in his home state of North Carolina. But you can't do it. None of the other states ain't enough time. PricewaterhouseCoopers said so. Shut up. Then you have the state parliamentarian. Okay. That all occurred after a fight in the Senate, which pushed the bill back to the House, and the House decided to attach it to reconciliation. And then the Senate parliamentarian ruled that the bill couldn't move forward because it didn't touch the budget enough to qualify. So we had a fast lane, not available, not by a vote, by a ruling. See, they're not willing to institute the same requirements at the state level at grocery stores required to buy a 6-pack of beer. So the president did what he does. He put together a parallel path. Move 1, the DOJ, the formal letter to the 50 states. We talked about that briefly. They have to comply with citizenship verification requirements, and the deadline is this week. 2, the voter rolls. The DHS was ordered to alert every state the number of their ineligible voters that are sitting on their rolls. They've pointed out nearly 278,000 non-citizens on the rolls across the 4 states of California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Nevada. And that's the DHS's review. And then there's move 3, the people. Federal election members or monitors have been deployed into 12 jurisdictions across 6 states: Arizona, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Virginia. They've been deployed already, all ahead of the primaries. And then there's the 4th step, which is permanence. The DOJ and DHS together have built a joint election integrity enforcement website with an with an interactive enforcement map. And that stays forever. It doesn't go away after November. So we've got letters, we've got alerts, we've got boots in the ground, and we've got a permanent tool to help protect election integrity. Now, the media wants you to look at this as a press release strategy because President Trump hasn't been able to convince the Senate to move the way he wants. But I'd argue back. This is a machine. And the Democrats have just noticed that it's started to run. And there's an important factor that many people are overlooking on this. Again, it's all been put into play because of President Trump's declass that he did last week of intelligence files, pointed out election vulnerabilities, foreign data exposure, ongoing investigations, real vulnerabilities. They're documented, they're declassified, they're on the record. So instead of waiting for the Senate prima donnas to do something, he just used the tools that he had available to him, the executive branch, and they're moving. Now, how many people who are explaining these things to you on YouTube understand the way that this works? Because I've watched a lot of these channels, and I'm not here to complain about them, but it really gets me upset. I mean, half of them use ChatGPT to recite the news for you. So you're getting Sam Altman's version of reality. And that's not what I'm bringing here, folks. So make sure you're liking and subscribing the videos because I'm spending a lot of time doing this. And recording and editing is not fun. But for those of you that know me and those of you that don't, okay, I was endorsed by President Trump, J.D. Vance, friends of mine, buddies, okay? I know how these guys work, and I know what they're doing. And when you combined all of what I said with what's happening across the country, with the district lines, the congressional maps, what the president's been able to do with MAGA Inc., his war chest, what he's doing with election integrity, D-class, he's setting the Republicans on path for something we haven't seen before. He's supposed to lose the midterms. He's supposed to lose the House or the Senate, maybe both. I mean, that's what Democrats have told us. But now they're on their heels. And I'm not a hopium, whatever the hell. I'm not one of those type of guys. Okay? And speaking of maps, I'll tell you straight up, the old maps across this country were never neutral. Big cities have gotten spliced and folded into rural areas for one reason and one reason only: to manufacture an advantage that had nothing to do with how people actually vote. Look at Texas, look at Ohio. And Democrats will call this a power grab, but I call it course correction. And it's happening in real time because the country shifted in 2024, and these maps are finally catching up. And again, that shift was because Donald Trump, when he won the popular vote. But money isn't the thing in this fight that we can overlook if it still matters. Okay? The Democrats are going to put out some releases over the next few days talking about how much they've raised, how they finally cleared their debt. But while it does matter, it doesn't have the same effect or magnitude that it normally would. The Democrats can raise all the money in America that they want, but it still won't buy back a board that's moved underneath them. Because under these numbers is the fact that their party is hollow. They have an establishment wing that's run this party for decades, and now they're facing a rising movement, an uprising of socialists and populists that has zero tolerance for what the establishment has done. We saw it a couple of years ago with Bernie Sanders in his presidential run. That was kind of like the onset. Well, we're seeing it repeat itself now. We just saw it in Maine. The party's own hand-picked candidate got wiped out. They didn't like who won the primary, so they set up someone. Terrible. I mean, I don't agree with Graham Plattner or any of the other socialists on anything, but I can understand why they're frustrated. Do you think anybody knew about Graham Plattner's little secrets besides Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries? No, they leak that stuff. That's party movers. It's the establishment. But how we don't have to look far to see the people in our party. They've spent years telling us the same thing. Sit down and wait your turn. Give me your money. Give me your vote. Bye-bye. Here's 50 billion, 350 billion to Ukraine while veterans are homeless. But I'll get off my soapbox, okay? The money part, again, let's go back to that real quick. MAGA Inc., Trump Super PAC, sitting on somewhere between 382 and 405 million, I believe. It tells you that Trump is not playing defense with his money. He's simultaneously launching this executive branch strategy and also raising money at the same time. And you can only do that if people believe in your mission. Ultimately, I think Trump is showing us that he does not want to, and he will not be reactive because he's already moved multiple times. So if I could give you any hope, that's it. But he can't do it alone. He needs us. And look, I won't say subscribing to my channel is a part of it, but hearing the truth is. Having reliable sources is. And it starts here. So where do we stand today? Well, Democrats have a little bit of money now. They're debt-free. Okay? They're going to say they're competitive. But I'm here to tell you that none of it changes what's already happened. The maps are drawn. The enforcement machine is running. There's a July 24th deadline, and even this fundraising gap, even though it's closed a little bit, okay, the board that the Democrats needed to win is not the board that they built their strategy on. So as they continue in party conflict, they're losing out on their window to have a chance. And again, we can't tie a bow on this and say we've won, but we can have some admiration for the architect who got us here. Because the president is single-handedly keeping the midterm hope alive. And now I know some of you out there are a little upset. You probably won't vote this cycle, or you said you won't. You're pissed off that Congress hasn't done their job. And look, I agree. Congress has done a terrible job. But here's what I won't do. I won't tell you that they're better than any Democrat that we have or that we could possibly have. And I know we're tired of that too, voting for the lesser of two evils. But here's what I can't do. Here's what I care more about. More about than being tired of the old adage of vote for me because I'm the better of two evils. I'm not going to watch this president go through what he went through the last time. When Republicans lost the House, what he went through was ugly. He didn't deserve it, neither did his family. And there's no way in hell that any of us should allow that. We already know what it looks like. Let's not let it repeat. I hope you feel that way. So anyways, if you want to actually see about this stuff I was talking about with your state, if they're on the hook or if they respond to the 24th deadline, that's something you can look up. It's going to be public. So, make sure you're watching. But before you go look it up, hit the subscribe button so you can come back here and I can tell you what it actually said. So, folks, money was never the fight that Democrats needed to win. The fight was the board, the strategy, the deployment of resources, and the mind, the architect. And by the time the Democrats finish counting their quarterly donations, Trump is already going to be moving again 2 to 3 times more. So keep an eye on the dates. July 24th, when the states have to respond to the DOJ. July 25th, too. Going to see who Maine picks as their new Senate nominee. We already know who that's probably going to be, but it's worth the watch. And October 21st, when the straw donor investigation into Act Blue comes into its deadline. And I promise you, I will be back for all 3. All right, we'll see you soon.